This week on the Baseline Podcast, Josh and I discuss, how the Reds still suck and how the NCAA has totally screwed up the NIL and the transfer portal and how it's really truly affecting not only the players, not only the coaches, but the fans of the sport itself in college football. All that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. That's Josh. I'm Ben, and we're here to talk more sports. A lot of things have been happening this week. A lot of playoffs has been happening. But unfortunately, because we record this on a Sunday and the episode comes out on a Monday, it's kind of like the games will be wrapping up when this is coming out. So we're just going to...
We only know half the results.
Yeah. So we're kind of like... So yeah, just before we get into everything, you might be like, why is this about college football? Because we don't want to say the wrong teams and then it's just a nightmare. So that was just wanted to mention that briefly. But before we get into everything, I hope you guys do enjoy this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe so you can see all the different episodes that Josh and I have. But Josh, how was your weekend? How was your week? How's it going?
Not a bad week, man. I've been following along with my LA Kings for the Stanley Cup playoffs.
That's true.
Unfortunately, last night they went to Game 7 with the Oilers and lost 2-0. So, overall, it was nice that they made the playoffs. That was a little bit ahead of schedule, not really expected by many people before the season started. But Edmonton was one of those teams that I thought had a real good shot to win the Cup with guys like Connor McDavid and
Dude, he's amazing.
And Duncan Keith. They're a really good team. And the fact that we even made the playoffs and took them to Game 7, that was really cool. But I thought they could have played better last night offensively. But other than that, Cleveland Guardians / Indians bats are still staying hot, especially with Josh Naylor, who's now on the COVID list. So he was out and he was
COVID?
in.
Wait, COVID? What? COVID?
Yeah. Yeah, Terry Francona, and a lot of other people in the clubhouse, mini outbreak, whatever. Enough guys are still healthy that they can play games, but there's a lot of dudes that are out. So that's kind of the situation with the Guardians. But I know you're kind of excited about some momentum the Reds have been picking up.
False
hope.
Listen, I put in my notes for the show. I'm not kidding you. I'm going to read this verbatim right now. I said, the Reds are almost amazing. Nah, they still suck. That's what I put in there because I tell people this, right? I want to get hyped. I really do. And I'll be honest, they're hitting the ball a little bit better. Their pitching is still so bad. When you watch their pitching, they have one good starter and he's a 28-year-old rookie. All right. And I just watch this pitching staff and I'm just it hurts because they have two good rookies. They have a good rookie starter and then a good rookie bullpen guy who's got an under 1 ERA. Two great players. And it's just Votto's coming back and people are like, oh, Votto's coming back. I'm like, the dude was hitting 122. So, I want this team to do well, but until we get to double-digit wins, I still am not. Right now we're, I think, 2 games out of the last place, 2 games from getting out of last place. So I think we're behind. The Orioles are ahead of us, I think, which makes sense. It's the Royals, Orioles, and another team. But yeah, so I think it's going to be interesting. I am excited. Okay. I'm not trying to be just a negative person about the Reds, but Josh, you've seen how they've played this year a little bit and they're just
how sustainable is the streak? I know some of those wins were against Pittsburgh, who is probably the team that they're approaching in that division. So
yes, that's true. Actually, the Cubs are below the Pirates, which is fascinating to me.
Really? Yeah.
Yes. They've only got 12 wins. So the Reds are only 3 games out of, still being terrible.
Really competitive.
Yeah. So, and also I guess, I was telling Josh before this, my life's been crazy. So I'm keeping up with sports, but then also got to keep up with life too. So that's the fun part. But then also our man, Jarvis Landry, who we both think did a great job as a leader in the locker room in Cleveland, is now going back home, which I give him props, heading back home. And that made me kind of, I guess, excited. It's a bummer he's not with Cleveland, but I think it was a very clear direction that Cleveland said was hey, we're going to go younger. We're going to go, save money because, he would cost $8 million at least, to bring him back. So yeah, I don't know about you. I don't know, before we get into the college stuff, what do you think about the Landry thing? You feel a little mixed about it, or?
A little bit, because to me, Jarvis Landry was a cornerstone of, I guess, building the Browns, right?
Culture.
Like, I think of him and Baker Mayfield and Miles Garrett as like those three guys that came in and just totally changed the culture, changed, I guess, the expectations within the organization. Not that necessarily that we're still meeting those, but I mean, we're doing much better than we were like even
Yeah.
5 years ago. Like, we got talent in the building, and those three guys were a big part of helping bring them to the playoffs, even win the playoff game. And I know Jarvis like wanted some money, and I think the deal that we offered him was less than veteran minimum, but very highly incentive based. So it just really
Which
wasn't.
makes sense, by the way, which makes sense for a team like the Browns, which makes
Yeah,
sense.
like I guess just speaking from my perspective, like just knowing what Jarvis has done for the franchise and the ability that he still does have, I would have been willing to give him like whatever contract New Orleans offered him. It
I
wasn't
think they
that
offered
much.
him. They said it was 1 year, 6 million plus incentives or something like that. I think
Yeah, it's
something like
kind
that.
of like a prove it deal. Like, do something this first year, and then we'll see if we can add you on. But speaking of New Orleans, though, like they added Tyrann Mathieu too, who's returning home to
Chris
New
Olave.
Orleans. And yeah, like I was just going to get to that wide receiver room now. Now you got
That's
a room
unreal.
with Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, and Marquez Callaway, and Alvin Kamara out of the backfield. So Jameis Winston, like it's all on you,
I,
man. If you don't win, it's on you.
I will say though about that is will Michael Thomas be healthy? Will Jarvis be healthy? We know Jarvis has been dealing with he's been banged up this last year and a half. It's like, Chris Olave, he's going to be the guy that I think Chris Olave is that one guy that you look at as like, this guy's going to play, 15 years in the league and he might get injured maybe a handful of games in a whole career. Like he's very durable, Chris Olave, besides COVID, because COVID knocked him out for 2 games. But because I think COVID knocks everyone out, it seems like in professional sports. Yeah, so I'm interested to see. I think the Saints are like, it's almost like, man, what if Drew Brees would be in that locker room? Can you imagine if
Do you
Drew
think
Brees was sitting there?
he, like Tom Brady, is thinking about making a comeback out of retirement?
I think if Sean Payton was there, yes. But with Sean Payton out there, yeah, he ain't. He's
Yeah,
looking. No, you know what he's
that
looking
is
at?
true.
He's
Breeze
looking
and
at
Payton.
hey, he's looking at that. He's looking at those, that probably what, 8-figure? No, not probably say what. I'd say it's, 9, probably 8 figures or whatever he's making now at ESPN or what. I think it's where he is. Is it ESPN or Fox? I think he went to
Are
Fox.
you talking about Breeze or Brady?
Breeze, because isn't he leaving?
Breeze is with NBC.
I thought he was leaving NBC. Maybe he's not. I could be breaking wrong
Brady's
information.
contract that they were talking about after football was going to be with Fox. I know
Okay,
that.
so maybe Breeze is, because I know Breeze is trying to get into the booth. He's trying to be the Tony Romo of.
I got
It could be the NBC. It could be NBC.
On the night game.
Yeah, but anyways, that is all the things. Obviously, like we said, the NHL is happening. We know that the NBA is happening. We know that. What I do know is that the Nets I just am so happy as a Cleveland Cavaliers fan. But we see the Celtics versus Bucks is happening, I believe, like now while we're watching that. While we're
It is.
recording
It's
this.
happening right now. It's started at 3:30. It's 3:31 right now Eastern time.
So it's happening. So we'll know the results. Obviously, so we'll know a lot of the results. So next week, like I said at the beginning of the show, next week we will be doing more in depth on both hockey and we'll be doing in depth on the NBA. And then maybe we'll throw some other sports in there depending on what's happening on in the world. And we'll probably still talk about how the Reds suck. So anyways, moving on from that, let's talk college football. Now, this is kind of Josh's idea. He's been kind of stuck on this NIL thing. So Josh, why don't you lead us into this conversation?
Yeah, so this is kind of like an episode that we've buzzed about doing, but it's kind of like an evergreen topic. But NIL and transfer portal discussion has been all the rage in college football lately. So it even seemed timely to talk about it right now, especially with the situations with Jordan Addison. He's made visits to, I believe now he's visited Bama, USC, and Texas, which are like his 3 main choices. We also got the talk about Nick Saban and tampering because of allegedly Tyler Harrell. I think it's Tyler Harrell is his name, the receiver from Louisville that transferred into Alabama. Scott Satterfield, Louisville's coach, is accusing Saban of doing tampering while or with him before he entered the portal. And Saban's over here like, I don't know where that came from because there's no tampering going on over here. And it's like, I mean, I don't think Bama tampered because if they were going to tamper, I feel like they would go for a much higher level receiver than Tyler Harrell. But it also was like, the kind of reaction you expect from the football coach of the team that pulled your best receiver, like tampering. What's tampering? There's none.
Let's just say that the NCAA are just idiots. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not afraid to say it. I'm just going to be honest. Like they are.
Like if you didn't want to listen to the whole conversation, that's probably going to be the summary in one sentence.
That's going to be the title, by the way. NCAA are idiots. That's literally what I'm going to title this podcast episode. So,
and then not too long ago too, Ben, like the NCAA, because of the way that it has just dropped the ball with all this transferring and NIL stuff, they've been going to Congress, like Greg Sankey, and I believe the Pac-12 commissioner saying, U.S. government, please help us. We're making millions of dollars to work these jobs, and we don't even know how to do them. So can you please just like come up with some regulation?
Like they're not the Congress doesn't even know what to do with their job. Sorry.
Like that's the one thing. Like the NCAA makes so much more money than the U.S. government to make these decisions that they've proven to be incompetent to. So then they go to an even more incompetent organization to get the solution. Like this is such a terribly run situation. They totally got the ball.
Oh my gosh. No, I would say, and we'll get into the specifics here because there's a lot of things to unpack in this big package of doo-doo. I'm sorry I used that. But I would say like the Addison situation, right? Like we'll start there, right?
Yeah, let's talk about Jordan Addison, the whole thing, and then maybe where we think he could be going.
This is my thing. First off, dude, you're an idiot. Like, I'm sorry. Like this school has, they kind of put you on the map. Pickett put you on the map. You don't see Pickett leaving after, his time he could have left, right? He went to the NFL. I'm okay with that. Is he a senior this year or junior?
Let's find that out right now.
Because if he's a senior,
NFL eligible. I know
that's what I'm saying. If you're NFL eligible, I'd be like, you know what? Fine, go take your talents to the NFL, make your money, whatever. But the fact that you are days before the deadline and you're taking your talent somewhere else, it's just a little. Again,
he is going to be a junior.
So then
this upcoming season, 2022, he'll be a junior.
Redshirt or
an actual junior.
So then he couldn't have went to the NFL then.
He couldn't have gone to the NFL after this season.
No.
He could after this year.
Yeah. So,
be eligible.
But still, I besides that point, for me, what's frustrating is, I guess, it goes back. Okay, this is my mentality, and I think I've told you this before on the show. This is my mentality on this whole situation with the transfer portal. It's that I go back to the old school way of thinking, right? Like the loyalty type thing where it's like you've put in the time at your school. And again, him being there 2 years makes it a little different for me because it's like, okay, sort of, but it's like, why didn't you just do it as soon as the year was over? That's what confused me. Why wait until 2 days before the portal was supposed to close and then you throw your name out there? To me, it's like either someone's been poking at your head and saying, hey, you can go somewhere else, or you just decide, oh, wait, yeah, I could transfer if I really wanted to. And Narduzzi's not happy about it, which I don't blame him. He's probably not happy at all that, his star receiver is, there's definitely some things going on that, again, I love when Saban says he's not tampering, but like, let's be honest, most schools are tampering with this whole situation when you're making millions of dollars out of it. I'm just going to say Ohio State's not one of them. I don't know that. I'm just kidding. I don't know that for a fact. I'm hoping
if Ohio State was involved, they would rat themselves out by now, Ben.
Oh, 100%. Yes. We would just give up all of our trophies because that's what we do.
I think a little, like, I think we arrive at the same conclusion about Addison at the end of the day, but I understand his reasoning for going a little bit more because his offensive coordinator from last year is now with Nebraska. His wide receivers coach is now with Texas, which big recruiting material right there for the Longhorns since they're still in this run. Kenny Pickett is now in the NFL. Keaton Slovis is in. He transferred in. And I don't know if Addison just got a couple workouts in the spring, was like, well,
nah.
My numbers are going to go down. This dude ain't it. So, like, there were a lot of pieces that were probably involved in bringing Addison to Pittsburgh that aren't there anymore. And with the potential to be the first receiver off the board, is like, we're assuming that him and Jackson Smith and Jigba are going to ball out this year and be like talked about as the two best receivers in the draft class. There is a little bit of NFL money on the line as well. So the fact that he transferred to me wasn't much of a shocker as it was the timing, like you said, like the 2 days before.
It's just ridiculous.
Like the fact that he waited that long almost makes you think, was he going to stay at Pitt? Or these are rumors. These aren't like 100% facts, but wasn't the buzz that Lincoln Riley and USC were offering Addison like a $3 million NIL deal that
It was
included
something like that. Yeah.
and like all this other wild stuff while he was still enrolled at Pitt before the portal? Like that's where it starts to become tampering. Like you can talk to kids once they're in the portal, but you can't talk to them while like he's at Pitt.
And also, this is the other thing where the NIL to me has just gotten out of control. You're offering homes to dudes that probably can't even figure out how to finance a home, and you're just giving him the keys to a home. And to me, I'm sitting there like I was a college student not too long ago. I worked with the basketball program. If you gave, okay, if Roshane listens to this, Roshane, I love you, Roshane, or anybody, Roshane, Rob, Greg, Easton, anybody that listens to this, any of the guys that I was around, right? Easton, Evan, Sean, whatever. I feel like you guys would also like love to have a house, but would you really like what are you going to do with it? Like what is that purpose? See, you all thought I was going to be real mean right there, but I wasn't. I saw Josh's face and he's like, what are we about?
I thought I knew where you're going with this, and then you took a totally different direction, man.
Because I'm a smart man. No, but honestly, I think you put like I was with the basketball program, like I was happy to get a t-shirt, right? Like coach gave us a t-shirt. I was like, yes. But these guys are getting houses, cars. Like in Ohio State, one of the guys got like this deal with like a local, like, I don't know, it was a company or something like that. And it's like, these dudes are like, that's where like, I think we'll talk about this in a bit, but it's just, there needs to be some regulation, which is crazy. But getting back to Addison, this is where I think he's going to land. I think I want to say USC, right? Like I think everyone wants to say USC.
I think that's the whole reason he's in the pool to begin with.
But I don't think it's going to be USC at the end. I think it's going to be Texas. I think there's a connection because I was going to mention the whole coach going to Texas thing. I know how that works when it comes into college sports, when you have that connection, like with an office coordinator or position coach, and you have a couple young QBs at Texas and Sarkisian's there. I'm just going to throw it out there. It probably won't happen, but I'm going to throw Texas out there. That's where I think Addison's going to end up.
Yeah, this is what I'm thinking along those lines too, because I did initially think like once I found out today that his receivers coaches over at Texas, I was like, oh, no brainer. Like Texas seemed like that oddball team. Like, why would he consider Texas? And then when I found that out, I was like, oh, that makes a little bit more sense why they're in this mix. But even before he went to the portal, I was thinking, what if he went to Bama because of what we just saw happen with Jamison Williams?
Yeah.
Fourth receiver at Ohio State, comes in Alabama, becomes wide receiver 1, second receiver taken in the NFL draft. Quarterback Bryce Young is still there. You're at basically an NFL factory. Like this would be the perfect spot for you, because if you're going to go to Texas, you better be darn sure that Quinn Ewers is going to be a better quarterback than Keaton Slovis. Like we have no idea what kind of quarterback Quinn's going to be.
We haven't seen him play in almost 2 years.
We know how highly recruited he was, but we've only seen him at the college level take 2 snaps and 0 passes. So to me, it would make much more sense to go to Bama first, USC second, with a proven quarterback, Caleb Williams, and a proven head coach, Lincoln Riley, who's already made so many changes that I think is going to make USC at least a contender for the Pac-12. But to go to Texas, a team that won 5 games last year, Ben, even with the offensive genius that Steve Sarkisian, that they say he is, there's just a lot more questions, I think, with Texas. Like, you better make darn sure, because if this move is all about like putting yourself in position to make NFL money, then I think Bama is the best fit. But I don't know where Jordan's mind is. I would just assume that since he's leaving Pitt, it has to be because he thinks that they're going to hurt his draft stock and Bama would raise it the most.
Yeah, I would say, I think, I mean, I get what you're saying. I think that's what's so crazy about this. It's so up in the air because I don't think anybody has a grasp of really what he's deciding. And again, it's the whole, this whole world we live in with the NIL and transfer portal and everything like that. And again, part of me is sitting here as an Ohio State fan going, you know what? I'm okay with the guys we have left, right? Like, I'm good with the receivers we have. We don't need another guy. I mean, we have like eight dudes that can just all ball
Trying
out.
to figure out how to use 4 or 5.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I'm like, I'm cool with whatever. But
I mean, they got Harold, they got Burton from Georgia, so they got 2 transfer receivers already that should be good. But I think if you throw in Addison, I mean, that's 3 like guys that could be.
But also, this is what is shocking me though about Alabama is and I know we mentioned this probably about a month ago, how they seem to not be able to recruit receivers. They just seem like they can't get them.
A room with 4 first-round wide receivers, and then whoever this new receivers coach I think they got, I can't remember his name, but he hasn't been able to bring in any talent.
And that's what should scare you as an Alabama fan. Like, you're relying on dudes choosing you in the portal, but necessarily aren't the dudes you want. They're just the guys that are like, hey, they're talented, let's bring them in. Because you look at Ohio State, you look at USC, you look at Texas, some of these other schools, they're going to start racking up these recruits if you don't start catching up. And you've seen Ohio State. I mean, they got Julian Fleming's barely played in his first 2 years, and he was a former 5-star. He's sitting there going to be like the 3rd string this year. Like, that's what's crazy at Ohio State is that they literally have dudes that are going to be not play for 2 years and then end up being studs once they get to their junior year. And that's just mind blowing to me. But I'd also like to say, just because I think, Alabama will never have as good of a name as the name of General Booty. I just thought I would bring this up. This seems like a good break in between talking about NIL and transfer portal. I'm just going to put this guy out. Okay, you might think I'm crazy that you're watching or listening, and you're probably in the car and maybe with your kids and you hear General Booty. Okay, don't. Okay,
General is not a title or a nickname.
Yes, it's not a nickname.
It's the legal first name of Oklahoma's newest transfer quarterback,
General Booty. And I'm sorry, that is the greatest name in sports, not just football history, in sports history. General Booty. I'm going to put out, that's what I'm dropping it right there. This is like a new random segment that I decided to just throw into the middle of the show, in the middle of another segment, because that's how we operate here. General Booty. So like when you first saw it, did you think it was like, because like when I first saw it, I was like, oh, this is a joke. Like, this isn't like an actual dude. Like, this is not his name. But then I found out it was his actual name. What'd you think?
I think I saw a tweet from Brady Quinn. That was the first time that I heard that name, I think since like a year or 2 ago, when I saw a list of like greatest names in college football. And then I was like, wait, what did this guy do? He just made a move, and I see that he's transferring into Oklahoma. So I was like, shoot, I forgot that's actually a real name. That is not a nickname. That is not a title. Booty. That is like, yeah, that's.
I mean, I can't imagine that kid in high school, man. Woo, boy, he had to have a fun high school. I'm telling you, General Booty. So would you? Like, what would you do? Like, yeah, that name. Like, I mean, I guess you live with it, but I just think it's interesting.
You like shorten it and tell people your name's Jen.
Okay, that's just weirder though. I think that's just weirder than General.
Like, you're kind of stuck.
You're kind of stuck with General or G. You could go by G Boot. No, never mind. Nope. G Booty is just. That'd be kind of cool. I mean,
do you remember John David Booty back in the day at USC?
Yeah. Yeah.
The only other guy I can think of that had that name.
I mean, yeah. It's just.
And he went by the full John David.
I'm sorry, but like you can get
General though, like is even crazier.
You can get some weird predicaments with your name, General Booty. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like there's just, yeah. I just feel bad for like his kids.
Getting in trouble or like pulled aside, say at TSA, and they say like name, and then you're like General Booty, and then they're like, no, quit kidding around. Like, what?
yeah. Like, or you get pulled over.
You want to see my ID? Yeah.
It was like I remember this Steve Harvey on Family Feud. He was in Africa, and this dude was Ibu, and then his middle name was Ibu, and his last name was Ibu. It was Ibu. And the guy didn't believe him. And his dad was in the audience. And the guy, guess what my dad's name is? And he's like, Abu. It was like this whole, like, this chain, but it was great. And
yeah. So Dylan Gabriel's the quarterback at Oklahoma right now. Yep. I assume so. We may not get to see General until next season, but
all I'm saying is there's going to be some good NIL deals with General Booty.
There will. Like, does that name make you that much more marketable?
Oh, 100%. Dude, imagine the shirts say, give us the, no, I'm sorry. I'm not, can't. I can't say
We
it.
won't go that far on
Sorry,
this
mom.
show.
Mom, we won't go that far, mom. I promise you, mom. But no,
Dude, speaking of great NIL deals, though, like, have we even seen a deal in the NFL or any other professional league with Lamborghini, like the one
dude,
Bijan Robinson just got?
that was unreal. I saw that. I'm like, wait, this is a college kid that's like 21 years old getting a Lambo.
That's
Like,
got to be the coolest, not just NIL at the college level, but endorsement deal of all time. Is
it has to
like,
be.
what could top that?
I mean, the
Like,
fact that LeBron
in
James
terms of
owns
money, like
well,
Nike's lifetime contract with like Jordan and LeBron is like probably the richest, but in terms of like just status and like just
dude, I don't know
cool,
though. There's some
branding.
there's some cool weird ones. Like when they get like these dudes, they get these small pop shops that are like, hey, we'll give you like name a burger on the menu after you. Like those are kind of cool though too. Like they might not be as glamorous, but you get these
Those
small,
are the ones that I kind of expected to be more common at the college level.
exactly.
Because I expected NIL to be more like, okay,
so
the
yeah,
superstars will get maybe a Nike deal, but more of like the smaller schools or like even some of these like guys. Heck, even maybe their hometown. They put their high school on the map.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Local restaurant, their high school and their town wants to make something like that.
So let's go with this. So let's kind of switch gears here and let's still stay on the NIL. What would I want to ask this question is what did you expect with NIL or NIL? And then now that what we've seen, like what's your thought out of it? Like what was that first thing you're like, oh, well, you hear this, like this is what I think is going to happen. These are the deals I think is going to happen versus now what we're really seeing.
Yeah, kind of. I guess that's kind of like just a continuation of my last thought is like I figured guys like Zion Williamson, guys like Trevor Lawrence, like the superstars of college sports would just be signing with, I guess, the companies like Nike and Under Armour and stuff like that early, right? Like those are the deals that you get once you become a professional athlete. Like I just figured, okay, the guys that are like locks for number 1, number 2, like top 5 picks are just going to start getting those deals in college. And then maybe the rest of the field will get, like a 6-figure deal for like a car dealership or like what you were saying, kind of along the lines of getting a burger named after them, but definitely be able to go back to their hometown and run like a football or basketball camp and make money off of it, be able to charge people for autographs. That was like how I envisioned name, image, and likeness happening. What I didn't expect to happen was for there to be absolutely no regulations whatsoever, for us to basically just have a bunch of boosters building up a slush fund with other, like, I guess with the schools. I can't remember like who's allowed and who's not. I know head coaches aren't allowed to be involved, but now assistant coaches are allowed to talk to boosters, I believe, about who they want to give money to. At least that's in Tennessee, actually. My bad. That's legislation that was just passed in Tennessee for next year. But anyway, like now it's just millions of dollars being funneled in by boosters so that you have a slush fund. You basically are just paying recruits salaries. Even like these 3-star kids that have done absolutely nothing at the college level are making money.
Making more money than both of us combined.
Basically like using leverage like, oh, well, Texas told me that I could get $2 million over there. What can you give me, Alabama? Oh, Nebraska just won up them to 2.5. Where you guys got now? And it's like, you guys haven't done a single thing on the field yet. Like the whole point of NIL and getting contracts with McDonald's and Nike and what have you is they want to brand themselves with you. But since it's not like these kind of companies, it's like donor money. That's what's like getting all wild here. That's how Texas A&M was just able to bring in like a $30 million recruiting class, like the highest rated in, I think, internet recruiting history is what it was. And that's where the money's mostly coming from. It's not coming from like your Nikes, or very rarely, like how many of these deals have come from like Lambeau with Bijan Robinson? I can't think of any notable Nike deal given out, even at Oregon at the college level yet. But because there was no regulations, now we kind of got like the mess that we're at right now. And it's not like, oh, so-and-so can't make money at the NCAA because of like NIL like rules, but now he can. So that means he can sign this deal with Nike. But that's absolutely not the way it's gone. Like way more guys are making more money than I thought ever was going to happen.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I think that's, you brought up some really good points, and
I just laid out a lot.
No. I really do. I like what you said there, because I don't know, like, because, and I know you've asked me this before, like you always ask me like what I thought about it, especially like because I was in like the college sport world, like in the basketball world, right? Like I was a part of the program. And I always said like it's different at the D2 level because you might get like one player that might get like a t-shirt, like he might get like some little things left and right. The D1 level, I always thought, okay, there might be that kid on the team. Like let's use Ohio State basketball, for example, like Justin Arns, who just transferred out of Ohio State, but when he was there, he was known as the 3-point shooter, right? And maybe he goes back to Versailles, where he's from, and there's like this whole like 3-point something. There's something about his 3-point shooting, and he gets a lot of these shirts made. He gets a lot of this branding with local companies. Like that's what I thought it was going to be. Where I thought it'd be, hey, you sign an autograph, you have an autograph session after your game, and you make, I don't know, a couple $1,000s from it or whatever. What I didn't expect is the same thing as you. Like I didn't expect this to become this bidding war, like this, like almost like you're in a multi-corporate, you're working for a big business and you're trying to buy this business, but yet you're still trying to sell to this business. And it's like, I get it. These athletes are bringing you money, but I think what the NCAA did wrong, and I know we'll talk about this here in a little bit, is they just didn't have an idea of what they wanted to do. They felt the pressure and so they did it. And I always tell people, the worst thing you can do is just do something because you have peer pressured. We all know how those never end up well. We've all been peer pressured and it never ends up in the right way.
I don't want to cut you off, but I think what peer pressured them was that legislation passed in California about players being able to make name, image, and likeness.
Of course, because it's California.
2023, 2024. So it was like, oh, shoot. Congress just passed it. If we want to like say we don't really care what California does, that means we have to basically axe half the Pac-12 from NCAA competitions. So then the pressure was on, like, we got to do something now, guys.
I will say this.
We get undermined by the U.S. government.
Clarification, it was not Congress. It was just California itself.
Just state of California.
Yeah, that's just, well, that makes sense if we're actually really being honest.
It was only a state law in California.
I mean, if we're being honest, though, it makes sense. We'll just leave that there. And it's interesting to me, Josh, I'll go back to what I was saying. Like it's frustrating because I could see there was so many good things that could come out of the NIL. And that I was a little hesitant on it. That from the beginning. I said I wasn't like all in because I worried about these kind of things. And here it comes. I told a lot of my friends that I'm like, yeah, this is great for the students. But first off, I wanted to point out that I know people hated me for this when I used to say like, yeah, but they get all their school paid for. And I'm saying this from a guy that literally had to pay for his school and is still paying for his school, and so, and they didn't like me for that. And I understand why. That comes from my point of view and I get it. But again, we're in a free world. We can say what we want. But I said the one thing I was worried about was just these athletes just getting taken advantage of, where these schools are basically just using them to just, get all these different deals and stuff. And what happens if this player blows out his knee or career-ending injury? Like this kid has not been set up for anything. He's just been getting thrown money at, like it's just this, this daily, this weekly thing or this monthly thing. And one thing you said that actually really popped out to me was like when you were like you didn't see coming was like the booster idea. I also didn't see that
was something that I did not even think was possible.
I thought that was illegal. Like you're not allowed to like, just literally pay players to come to you because they're like, oh, we're not paying them. We're giving them deals. I'm like, no, you're basically offering them money.
Right.
And tell them, hey, we'll give you this much money.
Like they're literally making no money from endorsing a product or like anything. It's literally making money off of the fact that they're a football player. And it's like a salary out of the boosters fund. And
all I'll say is, and I said this at the beginning, and you'll know this in the title, is that the NCAA are idiots. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm saying that, and this is their mess. This is their pile of doo-doo. We're PG on here. This is a pile of doo-doo that they're walking in and they're trying to get out of it. You can see they're trying to get out of it in every way possible. I'm like, but you started this. You didn't think about this. You didn't have any thought process how you wanted to do it. What did you think was going to happen when you basically opened the gates for every booster in the whole U.S. to go, hey, we'll throw money at you. We'll throw money at you. And it's funny when I talked about NIL over here in Europe, people here are like, oh, I played soccer professionally. I got paid when I was 15. Like, it's normal over here to like, make money when you're
Make money
playing a
as
sport.
well, not necessarily amateur since a pro at 15, but as a teen, I'll say.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But like, but I explained them like, wait, millions? Like, they're like so confused.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
that whole thing. So if you didn't listen to, by the way, this is the soil plug. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, it's a great insight. I think Josh learned a lot about European sports and the culture of Europe that affects on American sports as well. What'd you say, Josh?
Yeah, that one, I mean, I got everything I was looking for out of it. I was kind of curious, like what sports they pay attention to over there, which ones they grow up playing, if there's any American league, like sports leagues that they really follow, the popular athletes, I guess, that are in American sports, how much they're excited about the NFL coming over to Europe more and things like that. Like, it was pretty fun.
I will say, though, they never talk about the college football, and there's probably good reason because there's just enough to this crazy crap that's going on. But yeah, so I would say, Josh, I think to kind of continue this, but switch in a little bit of directions. What would you say is like this? What should the NCAA be doing in your mind? And I'll talk about this too. But in your mind, what do you think the NCAA should be doing, either starting now, but at least like starting here very, very soon, that they need to get on top of now?
Well, first off, I think we can say, how about you enforce the rules that are already in place, right? Like, let's put tampering to bed right now. Like, make an example. Like, if we
Out
can
of Nick Saban, make an example out of Nick Saban.
We can prove that Jordan Addison like was tampered with, or like this Harold kid was tampered with, like bull ban him for a year. Like, who cares if it's USC? Like, I mean, I guess they've put suspensions on USC in the past, so they don't really have a problem doing that. But the golden boy, Nick Saban, Alabama, like if they did do something and you find that out, like, punish them, make an example out of it, and make them stop. So that would probably be number one, is enforce the rules that are already in place.
Yeah. So before you continue, I mean, it kind of goes, this reminds me of what Dabo Sweeney said. What was it? A few months ago, he said something about like it's starting to be hard to really enjoy coaching college football. I'm like, if this is happening with the best coach in college football, if he did do this, why would any college football coach go, I want to go coach college football? Why would you? Why would you get to that point?
Yeah, I think they've all kind of like said some things. Like Dabo has said things about it. Lincoln Riley has said some things about it. Who was I just going to say? Lane Kiffin has said things about it. Even Nick Saban. Nick Saban hasn't really said like that it's made it difficult. I think he's more just kind of like, is this really how you guys want to do things? Because I'll just totally exploit it.
Yeah.
You don't like do anything. Like, if this is how it's going to be, I'll just take advantage of it because I'm that guy.
But that's just what bothers me, though. Like, right, as a former coach myself, like, you're already struggling to beat the best in the world, and now you got a guy that's like,
get them in your house, like you have to still recruit them to stay almost.
Yeah, and it's like,
because while they're in your building, they're getting text from this assistant coach and that former teammate at another school, and like this head coach here, like, hey, like, and this booster, and they're not even in the portal. Like, they're enrolled, say, at Clemson, and Dabo has to worry about his guys getting poached before they even would think about going to the portal. Maybe they wouldn't even do that unless they were tampered with.
Yeah. So, it's a crazy place. So continue on with what you think the NCAA should be doing as of now.
So that's number one, is like, just enforce the rules that are already in place. And then second, you got to do something about, I don't really know what rules you would do, but you got to like stop the slush funds for sure. Like, this wasn't made to be a salary. This is just so the guys that actually earn schools money, like that ball out, can make money.
Can you explain? Can you explain to our listeners what a slush fund is, so that they're like, what is a slush fund? It's not a slushy. Yeah. It's not a slushy.
Yeah, like I didn't even really understand it at first either. But basically, like, and I'll just kind of use like how Ohio State's building theirs up right now as an example. Basically, you got big time booster like Brian Schottenstein, I believe, has teamed up with former player Cardell Jones to start an NIL organization where fans and I suppose boosters and anybody can donate to the Ohio State name, image, and likeness fund. That fund will pay money out of it to, I guess, players and potential recruits. So since they're like, head coaches can't be involved in any kind of discussion with NIL, it's all done outside. that's why like it's so weird to think about, because most of the time when you think NIL, you think people from Nike or Adidas are doing the talking, but it's people that are kind of associated with the university, but really aren't. Like, I don't think Brian Schottenstein's an OSU employee. If he was, that would be illegal. So,
No, it's like the arena that the basketball team plays is named after his father or grandfather or something like that. That's all I know.
right. So like he's very ingrained in Ohio State, but I don't believe he's an employee of the
No,
school.
I don't
Because
believe
if anybody
so. Yeah.
at Ohio State was heading this up, that'd be a problem. But Cardell Jones, a former Ohio State football player, Schottenstein, very ingrained into Ohio State culture. They're teaming up here to run this fund, and you get donations for it. And then you talk to recruits, you talk to players.
That's a slush fund, basically.
About money that you're willing to pay them
Yeah.
with this donor money. Yeah. So that's basically like what a slush fund is.
It's all the money that we don't have is pretty much what it is.
Exactly. It's very unlike what you would think of for an endorsement or an NIL deal of any kind. Like, I don't know what rules have to be in place to get that to stop, but
one thing I think you do is you have to put limits and caps. I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned with a lot of these kind of things, that you put caps on, these people it'll be more of a level playing field. So, you're going to have like the Ohio universities and the Ohio State universities. Yeah, they might not be able to raise as much, but Ohio State's not going to be able to raise, $300 million or, $200 million.
That's actually something that I saw coming too, was people thought NIL was going to level the playing field, if you will, in college football. Everybody's like, man, I am sick and tired of Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Oklahoma dominating college football. Nobody gets a chance. Now that we have NIL, that means that these smaller schools are going to get the opportunity to, I guess, get better players with potential NIL and endorsements, and it's really going to level the playing field. And they were pointing to like Oregon and Phil Knight. Like, Phil Knight will just offer every single recruit a $1 million contract with Nike, and Kevin Plank over at Under Armour will offer Maryland recruits like, X amount of dollars to come here. But we haven't really seen any of that yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually surprised Phil Knight and Kevin Plank haven't been more involved in the NIL discussion. And what we're seeing is just like these bigger schools that are making all the money from athletics because of how good they are the ones getting all the money and the ones that are paying
again
out classes. So it's just the rich get richer kind of a situation. So that might be why a cap may need to be put in place if you're really worried about leveling the playing field. If you didn't want to stop slush funds, you'd have to put a cap on.
Hey, all I know is you're starting to sound like a lot of people in some part of political party. I'm not going to say which. I'm just going to say. I'm not going to say which. I'm just saying. That's all I'm going to leave out there.
I hope I don't sound like the bad guys.
We don't know. Hey, there's no bad guys. We don't know who the bad guys are. There's no bad guys.
Depending on who you are, the bad guy could be somebody else.
Jeez, we're going to offend so many people today. But
it's all in fun, though.
It's all in fun. We love you. Jesus loves you.
But you kind of get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah. But it makes sense. Like, you cap it, or you find that like I've learned that in life, right? Like, if you're at a job, but there's like only a certain level that you can get, like, unless you're, certain thing, whatever, it's a lot more equal and there's a lot more level playing field. We're talking about equality. Let's have equality, right? Like, let's try to equal it up. But again, I think, but let's just say this though. I do like to point this out though. Let's say that every program automatically gets $60 million to spend on recruits. We all know it doesn't matter because little Louisiana Lafayette or whatever, one of these small schools, they're not going to be able to, buy a player basically for the same amount that if Ohio State would do it, right? Like, it depends on the team, the quality, everything like that as well.
And so unlike baseball, like the Oakland A's can't compete with the New York Yankees the same way, but they do have a farm system where they can develop guys and eventually get talent, maybe play a little bit of money ball. At college football, you can't really do that.
Nope. Yeah, so it is an interesting thing, and I agree with you on both of the first 2 points you said. Like, I think the slush fund we have to find a way to stop that. I don't know how you can at this point. Is it a lost cause? But again, it goes back to NCAA. If you're listening, I don't know if you are, but you're walking in your own doo-doo. You are. Like, this is you guys started this. I know you wanted to compete with what California had said, but you know what? You could have took just a little bit more time. You could have just waited a little bit more, had a little bit better of an outline of a plan, because let's be honest, you're making a lot of coaches mad. You're making a lot of, athletic directors having headaches. I mean, as a coach, I recruit a kid and I have to basically pledge him, hey, we'll do this for you. I mean, look at Ewers. Came in, got his money and left. That's what you're going to see
I
now,
totally
NCAA.
saw that coming too. Nobody else like seemed to think so, but I was like, he's literally here for the money and he's going to leave because CJ Stroud is the starter.
Yeah, and I always tell people this, right? Like, I told people this a lot. NCAA, this is you created this mess. Now you're having kids who right now don't even have a team because they transferred thinking they would find a better spot, and right now they're still without a team because they can't find a spot.
Yeah,
and so that's the yeah.
Did you have something else to say?
No, that's what I am.
Okay. I have one more point too, and this is kind of like transfer portal related too. Like the reason that we're seeing so much player mobility right now is just because, and maybe this is like something that tampering plays a factor into too, but in the NFL, MLB, NBA, all the professional sports leagues, there's contracts and you're signing like a 4-year deal to play with this team for this long, which is why you don't see, I mean, still in the NBA, we see free agency like run wild and stuff. But the reason we're seeing like this basically college football free agency is there's no contracts being signed. There's nothing stopping these kids from entering the portal. So they could literally play on 4 teams in 4 years and just try to one up the NIL money that they could get at each place. Like Caleb Williams next year at USC, what's stopping him from going to Alabama for his junior year before he leaves to the NFL? Because Bryce Young is now gone. They have an opening and they have $10 million that they can give him. You know what I mean? Like they need to have some kind of thing in place that at least locks these kids under some kind of a contract. And I think that's another reason that, or something that the slush funds are contributing to as well, is just like it's creating more player mobility. Like there needs to be some kind of a contract system. Like I don't know if it's necessarily penalizing a kid, like have to sit out a year if you transfer, because I'm not necessarily a fan of that. And I also am pro transfer because I think there are some situations that, like Jordan Addison's case, like everybody that brought him to Pitt is gone. So I kind of respect his decision to leave. I've respect like Joe Burrow's like decision to leave, Jalen Hurts' decision to leave.
Yeah.
Like those are all like reasons why the transfer portal was created. It wasn't created so that you could leverage money like what Quinn Ewers did at Ohio State. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I always say this, like, I do believe in the transfer. Like, I don't mind transfers. Again, there's part of me, right? Like an old part of me that like, I loved watching college football in, 03, 04, 05. When I was younger, I was, still, early in elementary. And, you looked at the roster and you saw a 3-year starter that started his sophomore, junior, senior year. You had that that senior that just finally stuck around and finally got his chance. There's part of me that misses that. That misses seeing a lot of that. And you still do. I'm not saying you don't. But there's part of me that like the transfer portal has become so chaotic. It's become such a, like I've always said, this is all my thought is, I've always said it should be 2 years. You should say 2 years at least at a school. 1 year to kind of develop. The second year you try to fight for a spot. If
that's
you
can't get it, know. You can kind of see and read the room. Like, okay, I'm a junior now. I am still wide receiver 5. The guys ahead of me are all underclassmen, which means that they're going to be here next year, and I'm still going to be in this same spot. So I got no shot to see the field. I should probably leave.
Yeah, I've always said 2 years. You stay 2 years at a program. If you don't like it, then leave. I think there's always the caveats to that, right? There's always the waivers that need to happen if there's a certain situation. But also these waivers, they're nonsense. Like how many people have we seen on these waivers? And they're like, oh, he had this thing or this thing. And it's like, wait a minute, wait, what? How is
what was Tate Martell's waiver? It was
some weird. It was so weird.
Good enough or something like that. And it's like literally getting approved to transfer because he's not good enough.
Yeah, like, and that's the thing that scares me is like now these dudes are just finding everything. But again, I think some of these guys, I don't believe in karma, but some of these guys are getting a little bit of it, right? Like, they go out and this transfer portal like 3 times and now they're stuck without a team. It's like, well, that's what you get.
Look at JT Daniels, man. He starts out at USC, starts his freshman year, gets hurt, then he gets benched, transfers to Georgia, hardly ever sees a field. Now he's transferring to West Virginia.
Yeah, and it's like
Martell, like I just brought him up, like same situation. Like he transferred 2 or 3 times as well.
Yeah, so I think the transfer portal, and I think as well as the NIL it's a frustrating situation, I think, but again, it's not like the player's fault. It's not the school's fault. The schools are just doing what they can because they've been given that green light. And
right, all the coaches are just operating under the rules that are given right now, and they're just taking advantage of the system that's in place. Like, oh, this is how we're gonna have to be successful. So this is how we got to do it.
Until that green light is turned to red, then they're gonna keep on doing it, and I don't blame them. And again, I think this is something that we've talked about for probably weeks and months now, that Josh and I, we talk about this, because I think it is something that is needed to be talked about, because I think fans don't like it. Fans don't like going out and buying a jersey of a player and then, oh, now he's gone because of this or that. Like, I know there's a lot of people that got like number 3 jerseys for Ewers when Ewers is the highest state. And now, well, first off, that's just you being an idiot, because you saw that there's 2 guys ahead of him anyways. So that's just your fault. But sorry, but it is. But no, in general, I think it's a great, it's good and bad. Like, there's some good to it, there's some bad to it. Players are getting paid, but now we've got, so many different avenues that is not healthy for the sport. And are we going to get to the point, and this is my last kind of question to wrap all this up, are we going to get to a point, Josh, where this completely takes away the joy of the game, and it takes away fans from really loving to watch, like, the joy of the game to play as players, and the love of the game for the fans to really be there and support their team?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like some final thoughts that I'm having too, is like, at the end of the day, you and I are real college football fans that care about college football, unlike these big wig business, dealers that are slinging around millions, that are just caring about how much they can make, or how much money they can give to their school. Or if you're like on the TV, like administrative side, like, how much money can we make if we like do this X, Y, and Z changes? Like, we actually care about the sport. We love college football for what it is, for the traditions, for the history, for the rivalries, for the game day experiences. And the way that it's going right now, if they just want to make it like basically a minor league NFL, then we just have subpar NFL football. And then there's no point in watching college football, because then it's just lame football or lame NFL football. I'm just going to watch the NFL. Like, college football is different from the NFL, and all those differences are things that I like about it. Like, I almost love college football more than I love the NFL, and people can't understand that because of the talent discrepancy, right? Like, the NFL is like all the best of the best. Like, how could I possibly love college football? And it's because of all those extra things that make it great.
I mean,
And
the band,
you and I,
the
like, the
fans.
real fans are the ones that I think need to be the center of attention when these decisions are being made. Because if you're just like focused on like all these people that don't care about college football at all, like, you're trying to appease like all these millionaires, billionaires, you're trying to compete with the NFL, like, you're going to lose a lot of support.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's about what is best for college football, what's the best for the fans. And it's just a really tough thing to go down. Like you said, like, me and you, we grew up in Ohio. We love the tradition of on Friday nights going to watch Friday night football game, then waking up Saturday morning, watching game day, watching a football game. And that's what we love to do. That's what we grew up loving to do. There's a new generation of kids that are watching these seeing all these deals happen, going, that's college football. And I'm sitting there like, no, that's not college football. College football is the bands, the pep rallies, the skull sessions at Ohio State, the game days, the rivalry weekends,
the championship game to get to the national championship. Yes.
And honestly, I always say this, like,
making a bowl for the first time in your school's history.
Exactly. Like, I love the college football playoff, but I will say this, I do miss the BCS. When you didn't really know until that last weekend, if you went undefeated, you're like, okay, I know we're probably in. And there was just something about, like, when Ohio State made it in 2002 when I was just a kid, and I'm sure you remember that. Maybe you do. I know I do for sure. Aaron Lynn talked about how, like, you're just such amped up as a 5-6-year-old, so amped up about this game, and you don't know why. But it's because you grew up on that culture. You grew up on that. It's like here with soccer. A soccer game happens. You're a kid. You go to the game with your dad. Same for us. You go to a football game with your dad on a Friday night or on a Saturday. Like, that's part of life. And I just want the NCAA to know, we're not saying that you are a terrible people, not saying that at all, but you made terrible decisions. And it's the idea that you're taking away the opportunity. Yes, you're giving opportunity to these kids, but you're taking away the opportunity from other kids. You're taking away the experience of college football. You've made it into a just money-making machine, which it already was. So what's the point? You're already making millions off of it. Why do you need to make that much more money? Put some regulations, put some caps on it, and figure it out. And that's what we're going to end on. But I just want to point out, Josh, how bad the Reds are. I'm getting back to this, right? I got a notification. You want to hear this? Oh, no. Just hear me on this. They pull Hunter Green, right? Everyone knows who Hunter Green is. If you don't, he's the best prospect in the Reds organization, even though he has a 7 ERA. We won't talk about it. He had a no-hitter through 7 1/3 innings today. They pulled him after 118 pitches. Okay, makes sense. Young guy, you want to pull him. But no, it gets worse. It gets worse, Josh. The Reds lost the game 1-0. They didn't give up a hit.
So the team collectively threw a no-hitter still.
And lost. So if you want to know how angry and how upset I am about this year, just listen. Let me just repeat this for all of our listeners out there. As I said earlier, the Reds suck. As I say every week now, it's a tradition here on the Baseline podcast. It's going to continue to be a tradition. I love the Reds, but we all have those moments. Man. They were up 1-0. I'm sorry. It was 0-0. They were a no-hitter going on. They pull Hunter Green. It makes sense. I think Josh can agree with me on that. Makes sense. Young guy, 118 pitches. You don't want him to blow out his arm. I get
right.
That.
Like, I was about to say, like, did he just seriously pull a Dave Roberts? Because Kershaw had a perfect game going on through 7 innings and only 80 pitches.
But he had 118.
But 118, that makes more sense. Don't blow out a young rookie's arm. He's going to go the distance here. He's going to have to throw like over 150, and that's not ideal.
Oh, and by the way, Hunter Green got the loss too. He's 1-6 now, and he gave up no hits. So this man, I'm looking at the stats right now, and this just annoys me. They gave up no hits, but he walked 5. That's what screwed him over. Okay, he did walk a lot of guys. That kind of messes everything up there. But it's like this is the Red season. I'm going to post about this after
Hunter Green go like 1-20 this season and still win Rookie of the Year if he gets the ERA down. We're assuming. I'm speechless. But in terms of this game, score runs.
Like all you have to do is just get a few guys on base. But wait, I forgot we're the Reds, and we just can't even do that. I mean, this is going to be a long summer. And Josh is loving this because right now his bet is just looking more. If everyone knows about our bet, I'm not going to talk about it because at this rate, I'm going to have to fork over that. I mean, all the Reds have to do is just tie it. That's all they got to do. They got to win 2 games against the Guardians, I think, at the end of the year. And that's all they need. And then it's tied. Not have to deal with it because there's only 4 games this year. So it's either you have to win. So basically, I don't get anything out of this. You have the chance to win something.
I have everything to gain, nothing to lose. Well, I do have something to lose. You have nothing to gain.
Yes, I have nothing to gain out of this.
Nothing to gain, but everything to lose. I have everything to gain and technically nothing to lose.
Okay, you just confused the crap out of yourself on that one.
I did because I'm not losing. Like technically right now as we speak, I have some money to gain, but I also am not losing any money.
This is also true.
If we tie. So
this is also true.
Yeah. So I guess it depends on how you look at it. Like as a gambler, like did I lose anything?
Not really. I mean,
if I'm breaking even technically.
I mean, I'll be losing. That's for sure. But no, we talked about the NIL, but the reason I had to mention the Reds is because I see this pop up while we're recording, and I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm like, okay, no hitter. I'm like, okay, you pulled him out after 118. That's okay. Then when I see that he actually literally lost because they walked 5 guys, and which I understand he did walk 5 guys. It makes sense, but the Reds are 9-26. It is so painful to say that. It just hurts to say 9-26, but it's the reality we are in nowadays. But that's all for today's episode of the Baseline Podcast. If you've enjoyed this podcast and you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, shout out to Apple Podcasts. I didn't really announce it because I wasn't updated, but we're on Apple Podcasts now, Josh. To all of our
we announced that last week, but in case anybody is tuning in for the first time or for the first time in a while, we are on Apple. If you've ever done podcasting before, it's like way more ridiculously harder to get it on.
It is
Apple
so true.
For some reason than all
it is a pain in the rear end. Oh my word!
But shout out to Ben for figuring that out.
Oh, it took me like a solid 4 weeks to figure it out, and calling Apple as well. It was just a long process. But yeah, we're on Apple Podcasts. We're also on Spotify and Google thingy whatever that. It's really Spotify. I mean, I should just say Spotify because that's where everyone listens to, I think, most of the time. No offense if you don't, but yeah, so we're on there. If you want to check us out, if you watched on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. You get to see all the other episodes of the podcast. You get to see my other podcast, Real Talk with Ben, which, by the way, Titus Dean, who I had on a few months ago, is coming back on the podcast this week on Friday. So be sure to tune in for that. It's going to be a great conversation. He has some new music coming out. So I don't know. That's all he told me. So that's all I know. So we're going to talk about it. So that's going to be happening. And then also I have some other videos here and there with my wife and some other things going on as well. And then Josh, you also have your YouTube channel. You want to plug it in there real quick before we wrap it up here?
Sure. Yeah. So shout out Josh Burst. I got some videos that I'm doing basically on my bodybuilding prep for my first show coming up in June, just a few weeks away. So
we'll have to be talking about that. That's for sure. Oh, and by the way, my birthday's coming up in a few weeks. So we'll be recording on my birthday. So that'll be fun. That'll be a challenge one for, me. No, I'm just kidding. It's not. But so yeah, check out Josh and his channel. He does some really cool videos, just that whole side of him that's different than this. It's like a whole different side of you, but I know he's enjoying it. It's a tough process. I can tell you that much, I think, right? Josh, you would say it's a tough process.
Yeah, this was the week that, so 3 weeks out as of yesterday, like everything just started hitting me, and like just the not eating as much and the extra work and everything just kind of has left me feeling a lot more physically drained than I typically am. Like I don't really want to do much of anything. Don't really have any motivation to go and like leave the house, or like it kind of sucks, but just gotta keep head down and get these last couple weeks out of the way and push forward. Yep. Stay disciplined.
So there you go. That's all of our stuff. We got it out there for you. So go check us out on all there. Coming soon, we have some a nice cool thing that's coming soon. I'm not going to announce what it is yet, but it will be coming out soon for our podcast. It'll be really fun as well. So take a look, check it all out, check us all of our socials and stuff like that. And I hope you guys do have a great rest of your week. Until next time, we'll see ya.